Chapter 167. Shizun, I don't want anyone to scold you ever again. But the illusion paid no heed to Nangong Liu's anguish. It pressed on mercilessly, laying open one grisly truth from the past after another. On the shore of Jincheng Lake, Nangong Liu crushed the face of the merlion piranha beneath his heel. Scrutinizing it carefully, he pronounced, "Bastard." This bastard wanted Madame's spiritual core. Sect leader could have refused, said Zhu Shuangling. But sect leader still sold his wife off for a holy weapon. Don't say it like that. I didn't sell her off. Rong Shiji was in poor health to begin with. Rainbow Isle's best doctors examined her. Even they said she didn't have long. I would never have sacrificed her to this monster had she been in good health. Zhu Shuangling raised his eyebrows a fraction, but said no more. Nangong Liu stared at the merlion piranha a while longer. His temper suddenly flared. Life is so unfair, he grumbled. A look of surprise crept over Zhu Shuangling's face, as if he hadn't expected someone blessed with both fame and fortune to have complaints about their fate. He let out a snort of laughter. What? I said life is unfair. Zhu Shuangling didn't respond. When others get holy weapons, Nangong Liu continued. The lake creatures ask for a flowering branch or a song. Why is it that I summoned a monster that wanted my wife dead? What could I have done? What choice did I have? He looked deeply resentful. You saw it yourself back then. Our retinue held their tongues, but that Zongshi rebuked me. That Chuaning. A fucking 15-year-old kid. Yet he dared disrespect me like that, giving me an earful about morals and integrity. Empty words. If he had to choose between a dying wife and an unsurpassed holy weapon, I refuse to believe he would choose the former. Zhu Shuangling only grinned. Hard to say. Don't look at me like that. Seriously, you never can tell what those kinds of people really think. What else could they think? They only care for burnishing their own reputations. As if I don't know what these people are like. Nangong Liu grew increasingly sullen. Cursing, he kicked the piranha again. Ever since I became sect leader, I've suffered one indignity after another. On top of that damned curse, I have to paste a smile on my face all day long. It's a good thing I learned to swallow my humiliation. Otherwise, I would have likely died at the hands of Chuaning the day I obtained my sword. You're quite correct. Zhu Shuangling was still all smiles. Back then, I also thought Chuaning was going to kill you. Yet, you somehow persuaded him not only to spare you from Tianwen's killing blow, but also to keep his mouth shut about Jincheng Lake. Esteemed sect leader, your talent for saving your own skin is second to none. Even if he was outraged, he knew he couldn't afford to throw Rufeng sect into chaos, said Nangong Liu. And there was Seer to think of as well. We told him his mother died from her injuries while exorcising demons. It's surely less upsetting than the truth. Heaving a sigh, Zhu Shuangling nodded agreeably. No wonder that Zongshi left. If I were him, I'd be thoroughly disgusted with you as well. You think I wanted to do it? That I had a choice? Nangong Liu snapped. I already said it. Life is unfair. At this point, one of the people watching stole a glance at Chuaning and muttered. So, Zhu Zongshi knew the truth about Madame Rong all along? Not only knew, he helped Nangong Liu cover the whole thing up and didn't tell anyone what really happened. I guess he didn't want any trouble. He was only 15. If he really offended Rufeng sect, there'd be consequences. Another softly spoke up in Chuaning's defense. I don't think so. He lost a lot or gained a little. Didn't Nangong Liu say Zhu Zongshi concealed the truth because he wanted to protect Nangong Li's feelings? If it's true, it doesn't mean he has poor judgment. What's more important, a little kid's feelings or a sect leader's integrity? Ah, if only he'd spoken up then. Rufeng sect wouldn't be in this mess today. How can you say that? If he had publicly accused Nangong Liu,
It would have been complete chaos in the upper cultivation realm. People's decisions are their own. If it were me, I probably wouldn't want to stick my neck out either.
Well, if it were me, I'd have totally exposed Nangong Liu for the monster he is. With these sorts of things, an action makes you an accomplice.
Their voices were low, but Moran's ears were sharp. Furious, he was about to walk over and have a word when a hand grabbed his sleeve.
Shizun!
Chuaning shook his head, face impassive. Don't waste your breath. But it's not like that at all. Can't they understand? How could you have possibly spoken out in that situation? Who's the one with poor judgment? It's plainly... Are you angry? Chuaning asked mildly. Moran nodded. Do you feel like you won't be satisfied unless you do something? Moran nodded again. Okay, then help cover my ears. Moran froze mid-nod. I don't intend to argue, but I'd rather not hear it. Cover my ears until they're done talking. So, Moran stepped behind Chuaning and genuinely reached up to press his hands to Chuaning's ears. As he looked down at the man before him, he was overcome with outrage and heartache. He couldn't understand it. Why were people still disappointed in Chuaning when he did everything so well? Over 2 lifetimes, Moran had seen how this man lived for others with every breath, how he had never indulged in a single day of selfishness. Why then did so many rush to criticize him behind his back for one controversial choice or ambiguous decision? It seemed this was always the way of things. People were wont to shed tears of gratitude over an evil person's single good deed and viciously latch onto a good person's single mistake. In the past lifetime, Ta Xianjun had slaughtered countless thousands, but one day he'd done something completely out of character. He'd sent 10,000 gold to each master at Wu Bei Temple. Everyone had praised him to the skies. Ta Xianjun had suddenly laid down the butcher's knife to become a Buddha. For a short time, people spoke of Ta Xianjun like some beneficent god, all because of this one tiny act of magnanimity. And what of Chuaning? He was an indisputable grandmaster, one of the world's most benevolent cultivators. But at his tiniest error, people would open their mouths to spit malice unchecked. Moran had seen it play out too many times. When Chuaning was harsh, he was called cold-blooded. When Chuaning was soft, he was called timid. In his 5 years of traveling, Moran had once overheard someone recount the incident with Landlord Chen at Butterfly Town. To hear them tell it, Chuaning had whipped his client bloody and injured an ordinary citizen solely because he was trying to garner attention. He's a man carved from wood. He's got no conscience to speak of. See now, any normal person would have a few friends, right? But look at Chuaning. At 15, he turned his back on Master Huizui's sect, and he's been on his own ever since. Is there anyone in this wide world who would claim him as a friend? Right, and no matter how much in the wrong Butterfly Town's landlord Chen might have been, he was still the client. Chuaning was way out of line. He cares nothing for his sect's reputation or the moral code of cultivators. If you ask me, he's been alone too long. His mind is twisted. Chuaning's mind was twisted? Who was the twisted one here? Had this man not sacrificed enough? Was it necessary to drain his blood, rend his flesh, and offer up his bones, just so he would be considered right and good? Just so, in their estimation, he would live up to the title of Chu Zongshe? Chuaning was tall and slender, but as Moran, now fully grown, stood behind him to cover his ears, the top of Chuaning's head scarcely cleared his jaw. Chuaning was neither delicate nor weak, but as Moran watched him through lowered lashes, he suddenly found Chuaning deeply pitiable. Boundless affection and tenderness welled up in him. He wanted more than ever to embrace this man, not out of lust,
He only wanted to put his arms around him. In this harsh world, Moran only wanted to use his own flesh and blood to surround Chuaning with warmth. That was all. However, Chuaning was more than accustomed to mindless criticisms like, "If it had been me, I would have done this or that." To him, these comments were wholly unremarkable. The recollection from Jincheng Lake faded, and the shards of memory broke apart and came together again. But Chuaning looked away, his searching eyes finding Nangong Li. The young man had his back to him, still kneeling where he'd fallen. Chuaning sighed softly. Technically, he and Nangong Li weren't master and disciple, but it wouldn't be wrong to consider them so. He had hoped Nangong Li would go through life thinking Rongyan had met an unfortunate demise while fighting demons. But the world hadn't bent to his wishes. Many years had elapsed, but the truth still burned quick through that paper-thin deception, reducing it to ash. In Chuaning's eyes, Nangong Li's kneeling figure overlapped with the child kneeling in the funeral hall from his memories. That child had clumsily tried to recite Carefree Wandering, but he hadn't practiced enough. He couldn't recount it smoothly. Wiping at his tears, he carefully recited the lines he knew for his mother. "In the great northern sea is a fish called the kun. The kun is huge, I know not how many thousands of miles long. It turns into a bird called the peng." He spoke haltingly. Each time he paused, his young face creased with a suffering too heavy for his years. "If the whole world praised him, he rejoiced not. If the whole world blamed him, he despaired not, for he knew his inner self from the outside influence. He could tell." The child's soft voice caught in his throat. He couldn't go on. His small frame trembled slightly, like a willow catkin in the wind. At last, unable to hold back any longer, he covered his face and sobbed. "Mom, I was wrong. Sia was wrong. Please wake up, Mom. I won't goof off anymore. Wake up. Please keep teaching me, okay?" Later on, Nangong Li would inscribe Carefree Wandering from memory during every morning class. This text accompanied him all the way from when he was a small child until he grew into a high-spirited young master of Rufeng sect. Madame Rong was gone. She would never teach him again. Not long after, Chuaning left as well. He never looked back. Nangong Li took no one as his master. He relied on that patched-up old quiver and the maxim, "As a gentleman of Rufeng sect, I mustn't indulge in greed, resentment, deception, slaughter, obscenity, plunder, or conquest." Within the impenetrable walls of the world's foremost cultivation sect, the child blossomed into an upstanding young hero, as unlike his father as night from day. This did 15 years pass since Madame Rong's death. Another illusion coalesced overhead. This time, Nangong Liu's sleeping quarters materialized before the crowd. The moon was full, and Nangong Liu was curled up in the bed, on which was laid a bamboo sleeping mat and hollow bamboo pillow. It was clearly somber in the illusion, yet Nangong Liu was swaddled in thick blankets and shivering uncontrollably, his lips blue. Chuaning patted Moran's hand, still covering his ear. "Let go. I want to watch this." "You don't have to," said Moran. "I can tell you about it later." He didn't want to release Chuaning, but after several insistent taps, Moran knew persuasion would be futile. He let his hands fall and gloomily surveyed their surroundings. If he heard one more person blame Chuaning, he resolved to commit them to memory and take revenge later. Within the illusion, Xu Shuangling stepped through the doorway and made a crooked, careless bow to Nangong Liu. Nangong Liu seemed used to this and paid it no mind. Eyes bloodshot, he muttered, "Shuangling, where's that medicine? Where's the medicine?" "I prepared it, but it didn't work." Nangong Liu wailed, snot and tears running down his face in his terror. How? You said you could do it. I can't stand it anymore. It feels like my bones have grown thorns. Quick, close the window. I don't want any light in here. None at all." "It's already closed. Tonight's a full moon. Even if you don't set a foot outside, it'll hurt," said Zhu Shuangling. "It's no use. You can't escape it." No. Where's the medicine?" Nangong Liu was almost insensate with pain. "Where is it? Where? You said you could make it. I trusted you. Where's the medicine?" I consulted that old scroll again. It's impossible to formulate. The curse on you is too strong. Only one thing can reverse it. "What? I'll give you whatever you need. Just give me the medicine. Give me the medicine." "I need the spiritual core of the person who laid the curse," said Zhu Shuangling. Nangong Liu instantly paled. "Spiritual core? You need his spiritual core?" "Do you have it?" "How would I have it?" Nangong Liu roared, hair disheveled, spittle flying from his mouth. "You know who cursed me? My dear Shizun, that useless, worthless gentleman, Luo Fenghua. He betrayed me, so I hacked him into a million pieces when I chased him off the sect leader's seat. I sank his ashes into the most inauspicious blood pool and sent his soul to the infinite hells. He'll never reincarnate. Even his skeleton must have rotten by now. Yet you want me to find his spiritual core? How am I supposed to find it? How?" Zhu Shuangling calmly waited for Nangong Liu to finish his tirade. Only after Nangong Liu had sunk into a despairing silence, his cries stifled in his throat, did Zhu Shuangling say slowly, "I have thought of a way to do it, but it's incredibly difficult. Do you want to hear it?" "Tell me, quick, hurry up and tell me." "Luo Fenghua is deceased, yes, but you should be familiar with what's written in the record of the dead. Ghosts that fall into the infinite hells may never reincarnate, but it's still possible to gather their 3 ethereal souls and 7 corporeal spirits to create a ghost form that resembles the mortal body. The more terrible their death, the more powerful this resurrected ghost form will be. Some even develop a gigantic external skeleton in order to protect the souls from scattering." "But how? It's not like I can march down to the infinite hells to fish up his corpse." "You can't go there, but we can summon him here." Zhu Shuangling's lips curled slightly, his expression so serene beneath the candlelight that he might have been chatting about whom to visit for tea. The ghost realm and the living world are separated by a barrier. If you assemble 5 of the purest and strongest spiritual energies, you can open a passage to the infinite hells. "Open to the infinite hells?" Zhu Shuangling chuckled. "That's right. You can rip open a passage and summon Luo Fenghua's ghost form. His ghost form should be identical to his mortal body, including his spiritual core. If you eat his flesh and extract his spiritual core, the curse will be broken." After a pause, he continued, "But assembling 5 great spiritual energies will be no easy task. Ideally, we'd use the souls of the purest elemental spiritual essences. Don't fret. Let me see if there's another way." Nangong Liu opened his mouth to speak, but all that emerged was an eerie howl. Dribbling tears and mucus, he crumpled onto the bed, shivering violently. "Does it hurt that much?" Zhu Shuangling sighed. "That Shizun of yours must have left such a vicious curse on the ring because he loathed you for killing your own master. How very pitiful." Nangong Liu whimpered. There, bear with it. Once the sun comes up, it won't hurt anymore." Zhu Shuangling said. He sat cross-legged on the edge of the bed, cheek in one hand as he picked at his toes with the other. I'll stay and chat with you. The pain won't be as bad if you're distracted. Squirming deep into the bedding, Nangong Liu panted in agony. What's to talk about? Mused Xu Shuanglin. How about Seer? A real handful, isn't he? By nature, his spiritual core is unruly and prone to chi deviation. Doesn't it run in the family? I heard his great-grandfather had a similar problem. Cowering under the blankets, Nangong Liu swallowed. What do you plan to do about it? What do you mean? Nangong Liu sounded irritated. His illness has a far sight easier to deal with than mine. He'll just have to take the right wife in the future. The flow of spiritual energy can be controlled through dual cultivation. So you'd better just focus on my curse, all right? Haven't I been focusing on your curse this whole time? The more you think about it, the more it'll hurt. Scratching his toes, Xu Shuanglin grinned and returned to his subject. But won't that sort of dual cultivation harm his partner? I heard Seer's great-grandmother died quite young. Nonsense. I was just making conversation. To think she really died from dual cultivation. Xu Shuanglin sighed. Rufeng's sect is so treacherous. The sect leaders actually sacrifice their wives to solve their own problems. The lives of women are worthless to begin with. You really do have a low opinion of women, don't you? Xu Shuanglin remarked cheerfully. It's not as if you're ignorant of our founder's teachings. Oh, but I am. What did our founder say? Rufeng's sect should be led by gentlemen. True enough. And what's a gentleman? A man. Get it? Xu Shuanglin snorted. Allow me to say something impudent. Sect leader, you've misunderstood this phrase. In the hero's tomb, our founder is probably turning over in his grave about now. You've never married. How could you understand? Nangong Liu muttered. When it comes to women, what use are they aside from continuing the ancestral line? That's their responsibility. My grandmother was more than willing to sacrifice her life for my grandfather's sake. More than willing? Xu Shuanglin laughed. Then, will you also find Seer a wife more than willing to dual cultivate with him and sacrifice herself? Nangong Liu ground out. I've already found one. Xu Shuanglin blinked. What? Who? Who is it? He shuffled nosily toward the middle of the bed, almost as if he wanted to yank Nangong Liu out of the covers. How nice! So you already have a candidate for Rufeng Sect's young mistress. Come, who's the lucky lady? Nangong Liu burrowed deeper into the blankets. Suppressing the pain, he said hoarsely, Your foster daughter, Yi Wangxi.